Hi, Bishop Robert Barron. Hello. I wanted to say I was
Hi.
spellbound by your revelation this morning, today, Your Excellency, by that at Mundelein Seminary, Father Gregory, well then Father Gregory, was your spiritual director. So that was
He was.
amazing. What is your yes, yes. What is your connection to the Lavender Mafia in any way? And also,
Come on.
That clip you just watched was from what might be the most widely viewed Catholic internet program, Catholic Answers. I haven't watched Catholic Answers since the Amoris Laetitia purge. For those who don't know what that was, after Amoris Laetitia was released, some Catholics and the public sphere had had enough of engaging in pope-splaining for Francis. As a consequence, they began telling the truth about things like the contents of Amoris Laetitia. They stopped lying to themselves, essentially. And they started telling the truth about the obvious meaning of Francis's weird comments and all other manner of things that, as it turned out, is forbidden if you want a job with an establishment Catholic operation. This group and others began purging some familiar Catholic voices. And make no mistake, Catholic Answers is 100% establishment friendly. In that clip, you saw Bishop Robert Barron get asked a tough question from a caller, and we'll get to that question in a moment. When I sat down to do this video initially, my plan was to talk about Francis's new appointments in depth, his new appointments to the College of Cardinals. I'll get to that bit here as well, but there is a color that describes fully 1/3 of those members, and that color is lavender. If you're not familiar with the Lavender Mafia or with the St. Gallen group, you should familiarize yourselves with them. They go a long way to explaining much of the mess of how the Church has been governed since the Council, and especially during the years of John Paul II and Benedict XVI's pontificate. Let's get into this convoluted story. First, the College of Cardinals. Francis made waves a few days ago for naming 13 bishops to the College of Cardinals. They will officially take their posts on November 28th, meaning for now they are not cardinals quite yet. They are called cardinal designates. This news followed closely on the heels of the report that Benedict XVI isn't doing well in terms of health. Prayers for his health have been requested publicly. This happens from time to time, and you should absolutely be praying for Benedict's health. This may not be a big deal, and the appointment of these bishops may have been planned before all that became an issue, but either way, the timing is suspect. In some quarters, people are panicking, suggesting that the future conclave will now be impossible for a decent bishop to be elevated to the papal throne. Let's hold on there for a second. Don't succumb to despair. Don't swallow those black pills quite yet. Looking at the numbers, of the 13, 4 of the bishops are 80 years old, meaning they are too old to serve or vote at the conclave. They are receiving what is functionally an honorary elevation to the office of the cardinal. They will not be cardinal electors. Those who are 80 years old are Felipe Arizmendi Escobar, the Bishop Emeritus of San Cristobal de las Casas, Mexico, Archbishop Silvano Maria Tomasi, who served as Nuncio Emeritus and whose name has been linked in numerous fun stories out of the Vatican in the past, and Archbishop Raniero Catala Mesa, who is the preacher for the papal household, and Enrique Ferrocci, parish priest for Santa Maria del Divino Amor, a Castello de Leva, Italy. Interestingly, Francis is raising a parish priest to the office of cardinal, not an unheard of practice, but pretty rare in the post-conciliar era. That leaves 9 cardinals. We're going to zero in on 3. Why 3? Because you don't often have to do a lot of digging to figure out who the worst of the bad apples are. You just have to look at who is cheerleading for them. And as usual, the cheerleaders are out in force. And by cheerleaders, I mean Pastor Jimmy Martin of the Jesuit Church, who took his pom-poms to Twitter to bring our attention to the most questionable of the cardinals to be. In this tweet, which I had to redact a bit due to the weird rules on this platform, Pastor Jimmy Martin praises 3 of the appointees for being friendly to the Skittles in the church. Taste of the rainbow. Quote, "Great news! At least 3 new cardinals have shown themselves to be friends of the Skittles. Also, Cardinal-elect Gregory invited me to speak in Atlanta on acronym Catholics when other talks were being canceled. I'll always be grateful for his support." End quote. So, according to Pastor Jimmy Martin, 3 of these men are dissenters from the formal moral teachings of the Church, the Desert Fathers, and sacred scripture. He cites the heretical New Ways Ministry website for this information. And if you're not familiar, Pastor Jimmy Martin has himself said that he believes St. Paul was wrong on the issue of, well, the issue he champions. which means he has at least tacitly, if not overtly, denied the inerrancy of sacred scripture. Keep that one in your heart for a while. According to New Ways Ministry, who are the experts in all things James Martin Brigade, well, I'm going to partially quote their article here due to the nature of what they're saying. Longtime viewers will understand why I will be partially quoting them. According to New Ways Ministries, the three bishops to be highlighted are Bishop Mario Gresh, Bishop Marcello Semeraro, and Archbishop WIlton Gregory, the latter of whom I'll give you some links to Bishop Barron on. Beginning with the New Ways Ministry piece, paraphrasing them. Bishop Mario Gresh, who serves at the Vatican as Secretary General of the Synod of Bishops' Office, is formerly the leader of the Diocese of Gozo, Malta. Gresh's statements in support of the James Martin Brigade have made him strongly accepted by that group in Malta, a very Catholic nation, and also considered the nation with the strongest pro-James Martin laws in the world. Bishop Marcello Semeraro, who was just recently appointed to lead the Vatican's Congregation for the Causes of Saints, has shown that he is open to discussing these issues. While his record is not as long as the other two men, it still points in the positive direction. That's the ending of the paraphrasing on that, and I'm going to add here also that Bishop Marcello Semeraro replaced Cardinal Becciu in the office for the Congregation for the Causes of the Saints. And he's open to discussing those issues. Fantastic. Which brings us to WIlton Gregory. New Ways Ministry describes him as one of the few members of the U.S. Catholic hierarchy who's willing to offer affirming messages to the James Martin Brigade. Now, if that is true that there are very few members of the U.S. Catholic hierarchy who do that, then that does help restore slightly my faith in them. They then highlight his ethnicity and how he has been a champion for issues related to that, and how he is directly connected to the 1960s and 1970s movements for legal protections for both groups in question. So there is the endorsement of people who should not be endorsing any bishop of the church for any reason. But let's get back to the question asked by the caller at the start of all this, to the Catholic Answers clip I began with. The question of Bishop Barron's role or connection to all this begins with his endorsement of WIlton Gregory. On social media, he posted a picture congratulating Gregory with the message, quote, "I was delighted to hear that Pope Francis has named Archbishop WIlton Gregory to the College of Cardinals. In my first year at Mundelein Seminary, then Father Gregory was my spiritual director, my professor of liturgy. Over all the intervening years, I have known him to be a man of integrity, intelligence, kindness, and deep spirituality. Congratulations to Cardinal-designate Gregory." End quote. You know, there are plenty of people in this world who are deeply spiritual, and not all of them are Catholic. And that's not an endorsement of that either. Don't mince my words there. That just bears reminding because, well, now a Catholic can be a champion for the same cause as James Martin and remain in good standing in the church. And I don't know how that's possible, and everyone should be asking that question. And that brings us back to that caller. That man had the courage, or maybe temerity, to ask Bishop Barron what he knew of the Lavender Mafia. The hypothesis has long been that the Roman Curia has been in the grips of this group, comprised of members of the James Martin Brigade, who controlled much of the communications in the Vatican. By communications, I mean access to delivery of the mail, opening the mail before it was delivered to the Pope and other influential members of the Roman Curia, and that they prevented the popes of the post-conciliar era from hearing much, if anything, about the wickedness that some priests were engaged in the greater church. This claim was made by Father Malachi Martin most famously, but repeated elsewhere by more contemporary figures in the church. And while I'm not sure where the term Lavender Mafia comes from precisely, it is a good descriptor of what we're talking about. It is also worth noting that James Martin has a post in the Vatican's communications office, which would be in keeping with this tradition. So the question stands, what knowledge does Bishop Barron have about this group? He should answer, and answer in a completely transparent way. Some others will inevitably ask questions about Barron himself, given that Gregory is a promoter of dissent on the most essential questions, and has long been rumored to be part of the James Martin Brigade himself. I personally don't know what to think about that, but I'm sure you've got questions yourself. In the comments, let me know what you think, and if Barron can be persuaded to speak publicly on this issue at all. And please pray for the Church. At least 6 of the cardinal electors coming in are relative unknowns, at least on that issue. The sources blog at returntotradition.org has a link to all the names, so you can do some digging if you like. Thanks for listening. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.